record this time as I am now. I'll open us in prayer, and then we'll dive into our chapter 5 this week of Don't Quit. Let's pray. Father, we come to you today just thankful for the calling you've given us. Lord, I pray as we prepare for this weekend, as we celebrate moms. I pray that you can use our churches to make moms feel warm and welcomed and supported and loved on. God, I am thankful that moms can all be different, like grandmas and aunts and people that step into kids' lives to help them be successful. So God, I pray that we just celebrate all these amazing ladies this Sunday. Be with us during this time. May you bless this conversation, may it be fruitful, and be with us for the rest of the day. In your name, amen. All right, so chapters 5 and 6 were over embracing limitations and clarifying the win. And chapter 5 had the questions, which I had to bring up to refresh my memory. And chapter 5, it talked about describing a limitation you face today. So let's start with that. What are some limitations that you face in your ministries?
We're a committee driven church. We're Presbyterian, and sometimes I'd say one of our everything has to go through another, and getting the approval to finally do something. They're getting better about it, but that's one of the things I think we struggle with, just like getting them to see our vision, I guess you would say, because I don't know how it is everywhere else, but here we kind of feel like if they're youth, they give more attention to. The children are just kind of, we're just getting them, not to call them babysitting, it's like that kind of thing. So I'd say that's one of the things.
Okay, we're gonna try this. Things are going crazy at my house, but my biggest limitation is space. We've got one small classroom that we're very quickly outgrowing, and we're having a hard time finding the same chairs that we bought. We're having a hard time finding just all of the things that come with growth that just kind of allow things just to continue to be cohesive. And I don't necessarily feel the need to spend the money to try to find all new things, because we're also trying to renovate the church, and we're trying to get ready to sell the church to hopefully move or build or something. And so all of our extra budget is going towards redoing the parking lot and redoing, just doing all the things that go along with that. So they're good limitations, but at the same time it's a bit of a challenge.
I would agree. Ours is space. We had a great renovation done several years ago, but the problem is we could only go up. We couldn't go out, and you can only go up so high. And when you do go up, it's not like you can always do the same exact layout as the first floor. So right now we're in a pinch, we're in a bind, and we've been trying to think of different ways to alleviate that, including adding another service. But the stress of that to me is just very heavy. Like, how do I add a whole nother team when I'm struggling with the one I have now? I mean, I have a great team of volunteers, but we've lost some. We're trying to train some new ones, and then we're entering the summer when everybody goes on vacations, and which I think will help our numbers, obviously, for the summer months. But once we come back to the fall, I mean, we've got, the potential of 80 to 90 kids coming every week, and I'm just running out of space for that. And then on top of that is our midweek services. We don't have space for anybody. And we're like, do we add another night? And we just don't want to keep adding nights or adding services. It's just because then we're also going to lose the sense of community, which we're so big about, like our small group community. So.
Oops, I just did. What did I do?
You're unmuted.
I am.
Yeah.
I don't know what I didn't know what I did. I was just gonna say, space wise, we've just had a huge renovation and really redid our whole children's ministry. And it's like we've been in it in a year and a half, I guess, and saying we need more offices, we need more classrooms. It's just amazing. I don't think you can ever catch up with it if you're growing, and but we don't do when our midweek during the summer, we take that break, but I just don't see how you could even add another night. It just gets with, you're living at the church, and you got to have some of your own time.
Right. And that's where we're at. Like we take it off for the summer, like we're done, but we're planning obviously for September and how that's going to look with what we left with here at the end of April. And like our youth group is like bursting at the seams, and they're meeting in closets for small groups, and they're meeting in our storage rooms for their small groups. And like my ministry, we're not like in our big main area for gym time. We're playing in classrooms. And so like we've adjusted or tried to adjust as much as possible. But just kind of like you were saying, Evelyn, we've been growing since our renovation as well, which is wonderful. We don't want to reach that point where we did before of being like we literally reach capacity and people don't come back because it feels so like crowded and you don't get to know people. So what how many like kids or people do you run in your services on a Sunday, and how many services do you have?
Me, we have 3 services. We do one early traditional, and then we have 11 o'clock traditional, then a contemporary service. And we just finished that renovation too, where we have a huge new, what do you call it, auditorium, where we can have concerts and things. And but on Sunday, it does seem chaotic here. I think a lot of times the parents are thinking we're kind of, because so many kids are coming at once. We have a check-in area, and you don't know who's coming or going. But it's hard. I didn't do it yet. It's hard, but I can't unlock it. Oh, sorry. You're asking me something.
So you have one traditional and 2 contemporary services on a Sunday?
No, 2 traditional and one. The contemporary service and the traditional at 11 o'clock are going on at the same time. And then in the 8 o'clock service, it's just a traditional. But they're both well attended. The traditional one's very good. We put in a new person that's just, the music is incredible. It's like I'm happy with either one of them. But we have a lot more people coming now. Like that whole stadium, however you call it, is really full now. So
do you have 2 auditoriums then that you're
able
to host?
No, one auditorium, and then which is the contemporary, and then the sanctuary, which seats like 1,100, I think. That's where we always do traditional and other things. So it's pretty big. But I can't open it. It is open. Oh.
Well, that's wonderful. And to hear that you're growing on top of that, that's really good. So now that we've all kind of stated our limitations right now, do you have anything that will address even like a small part of the problem? Like, is there anything that would be a quick solution, I guess?
Now that summer's here, depending on how many kids we have, we might just do our services outside. It's not cold anymore. Might be hot, but
that's a good idea. Do you have, and I'm just asking because it's different. do you have a security team that like monitors stuff like that? Like, do you have to get their approval, or like, do you kind of get to do whatever you want with that?
Um, well, our church loves children's ministry, and I'm very blessed in that. So I pretty much get to say, this is what I want, and they make it work. But we do have a security team, but not, we have a door that goes directly outside from the kids' wing, and it's just not really a problem.
Ours would let us too, but I know there are some churches who are like very, like, not saying security is not important for our churches, but they're maybe more strict with it. Like they have, specific guidelines and rules that everyone has to follow, including like not going outside or something. I don't know. But ours would be the same. For us, one way we're trying to solve or help a small part of the problem, like I said, is we're contemplating going to a third service. But obviously that would make for a much longer day for me, for all of the ministry leaders. So they're trying to like idea or brainstorm, what if this third service becomes a church of its own that births out of our church? So it would have its own ministry leaders, copycatting what we do, but me not being in charge of it. And another option we're looking at is our building is attached to a very popular like lawn and garden company, and their warehouse is attached to our building, and their warehouse is double the size of our current building. And so we're actually meeting with the owner of this lawn and garden place to see if he'd be interested in selling it to us. We also may push the idea. Are you guys familiar with Kmart? Did you ever have Kmart? Okay. So Kmart's like out of business everywhere. But there's a vacant Kmart building literally 2 miles north of our location, but it's too big for us. Like it would be a millions and millions of dollars renovation. So we might come in with, hey, can, you sell this building to us? And we know you need to, make up for that space. So have you seen the Kmart building? Just giving that guy ideas too. And he's a wonderful business neighbor that we have. We've, chatted with him, and he's been supportive of our events. So we're kind of hoping that maybe a conversation like this will help with something. I don't know, but these are our current small attempts in trying to fix our space problem. Hi, Kristen.
Hello. Where are we at?
So we all kind of listed limitations that we have right now for chapter 5. And now kind of going, if we have something that would address even a small part of our problem. So mine is lack of space. Jackie's is lack of space. And Evelyn, your problem was it a mix of lack of space and something else? Sorry. Yeah. So we're just kind of going over that. Do you have any limitations with your ministry right now that if could be solved would be amazing?
Off the top of my head, I am not 100% sure. I mean, I know I have them, and I was thinking of them as I was reading the book. But I think, it's, the lack of space. I think, some of my limitations are storage spaces that actually work, I think is almost more important. Like, you cannot see my office. I've nicely hidden it from you, but I am doing a box fortnight on Tuesday, and probably 3/4 of my office is boxes. And I also have a bunch of other things. We are a shared facility in a sense that we have churches that rent in our place, and none of our cupboards are safe. And so you have to start storing your nursery snacks. You have to start storing your sand. I promise you, sand is not a great thing to have to clean out of all your kitchen stuff. So I think that for me, that's the biggest thing. And it's kind of been an ongoing fight because we've tried like the magnet locks. We've tried I got those. They are so cool with their baby locks now. They now make like false button locks that have a button, and it's fun. I actually told our admin, I said, like, look at these locks. And I said, they're false button. And I gave it to her and I was like, how do you think you unlock it? And the first thing she does is hit the button. And so we've tried those and they figured them out. They figured out how to open them up, and they go through my cabinets, and they so yeah, I think for me that's the biggest, because it just feels like nothing is safe in here. Like I've walked into rooms and found like 8 glue sticks with no lid and markers that aren't capped. And I mean, supplies are a thing that are required. So I think that for me is probably the biggest one.
That's gotta be so frustrating because we all operate on budgets and, you know, every penny counts. So I think I'd be pretty frustrated too of coming in and finding, we had that for a while with snacks. I locked up snacks and they still got in the cabinets too. So I ended up having to hide snacks in my office, and then we just stopped doing snacks. But, would you say do you have anything that would address even a small part of that problem?
This is one of those like hot topics. Like for me, like I don't mind sharing our spaces, and I believe that we are a church that have. So I don't mind at all, but I feel like there's a lot of unsafe things that happen, a lot of little things, and I've come up with all sorts of like, well, if I got this or if we did this, but there's a lot of resistance because I had about 4 years ago had them put locks on a bunch of these cabinets, and lo and behold, I think only like 2 of the cabinets now still lock. I don't even know how. Like sometimes people amaze me. We had one lock, like the middle got like broken out, another one just shifting in the cupboard. I don't know. It's just nuts how all that stuff. So I have a couple ideas, but it's all budget, and I can go through and do it all through my budget, but my budget is only so big. And to have to continually replace and try out locks. And we're just at a space where we're kind of my solution is, well, let's lock all the doors. To me, that makes sense. But how our church is wired is that kind of like one lock unlocks like a lot of doors. So you don't want to just be giving away keys, because then but you also don't want your staff walking around with like 27 keys because they have to get into, that many rooms. So there's just some little perks that I'm like, if we could just deal with this, I have a bin of like, in the summer we do, like I have a toy table that goes out because we don't do kid programming for our older kids. So it has like puzzles and that kind of stuff. Well, I have to keep that all in my office, because if it goes anywhere else in the church, it's found. And then, for the next 6 months, you're pulling out puzzle pieces from random rooms. I don't even know. We have like a black hole, and it just randomly will spit stuff back out wherever it feels like it. So yeah, I have shelving right now in my little Sprouts room that doesn't have doors, and it's been a real challenge to get the doors back on. So or to get doors on. Apparently whoever did them didn't think that through, and it's actually a safety hazard because kids climb.
We need to get you, my brother-in-law has this like electric lock, like he can program from his phone. So he's the only one that can unlock it from his phone. My girlfriend did it too, for her food pantry at home, because her 5 boys would go there and ransack all the snacks and then not eat dinner. So they ended up having to put a lock on their pantry door, and it works, and she can get it from her phone. So if she's at the store or she's out and about and the boys want a snack, if they're home, she can just send the code to open it. Obviously at that point, once it's open, if they don't close the door, it's freedom to food. But it's a helpful lock, but it's also a good chunk of change.
Well, and that's just it, is like, I mean, you guys all know ministry is constantly changing the rooms we have, the number of kids we have, what we do in each room. I think it's shifted so many times. Like even before COVID, we were constantly like, okay, which room can we fit which kids in? And yeah, I mean, that sounds like what I need, but yeah.
My personal vote is confetti. Like just rig it. So as soon as it's open, the alarm sounds, confetti goes everywhere. Put in a camera to record the reaction. Just if it's gonna happen, get some entertainment out of it.
The problem is I'm the one cleaning up the confetti. And I think that's been the other part of the frustration, is that it's like, my classrooms are clean when I leave on Sunday, and when I come back on Monday, they're not always in the same way I left them, and that's like the most frustrating because then it's my time and my space and as you guys all know, kids ministry, we are not short on things to do. So
I had a huge problem with that. We have, multiple ministries that use our building throughout the week, and we have small groups too that utilize the building on Sundays. So I would have everything cleaned up, and then I'd come in Tuesday morning because Monday's my day off. And like, this is probably one of the negative parts of me. Like, it just would instantly irritate me that someone did not treat my space with the respect that it deserves. Like, the effort we put into it, they weren't, just cleaning up. And my leadership's amazing. And it got to the point where we basically, not threatened, I hate saying that word, but like, we locked all the doors to the classroom. So like, sorry, if you're a small group and you can't clean up after yourself, you don't get to use my space. So once I did that, the small groups got a lot better about cleaning up. There's one other, my Celebrate Recovery ministry, they don't clean up as good. I mean, they're doing better, but still, it's hard when you come in and you want to start your day off and you're faced with toys everywhere and chairs not where you left them. And so I feel you. Jackie or Evelyn, do you have any small or anything that would help at least a small part of your problem?
I gave mine, going outside for service.
Sorry, yes.
Pray harder.
We're kind of like you guys. We share with our preschool that's during the week, and so even though we're equal, they have more of it because they're here more. We're only here a few days, one day out of the week. But I have that problem with both sides. But like, I just got an email the other day saying something was messed up in their room. But so now I'm having to be so careful going around making sure we've got everything checked. And then I noticed some of my stuff is missing because I just have one little area, and it had that same thing. It's so frustrating that you go in and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I just did this, and now the teachers are saying I don't have anything, that kind of thing. But we just we know this is what we have to do every week. So and then they're getting bigger. They're going to add another room, another class next year. So now we're trying to it's almost kicking us out of rooms, trying to make it work. But yeah, I think we all go through that trying to, when you're saving spots. We do have we call them sextons, but our janitors that they do clean up every, I try to make sure things are pretty done, but they'll go in and do all the mopping. But then we found out this past week we'd sanitized everything, and somebody came in and let their kids play in it, and and so it had to be redone. So but we have cameras too, so we can start watching. It's kind of fun when you do, and you can kind of see what people are doing. You got to be careful.
Well, I'm sure too, I don't know how it is in the state you're in, but if you have a preschool in your school, if you have state licensing, you've got all that to contend with too, and what's supposed to be required in a classroom and what's not, and then having to balance that with your Sunday stuff, I'm sure is
they really have to. We don't so much, but yeah, they've got a lot of, they're governed by DSS. So yeah. Did you fix it?
My biscuit.
So the next one question is, what do you lack to solve the problem? Space.
the hard thing about space is it's not like, well, if I just rethink this a little bit, because once you're out of space, you're kind of out of space. There are sometimes creative ways, like we'll take your gym and divide it into 5, but I don't know. Sometimes I think some of those decisions or those ideas, you're like, have you worked with the kids recently? Putting them all in one, like I remember, oh, we could just put them in the gym, and I'm like, our gym echoes, and we have a lot of children that are like, oh, noise, where's the noise coming from? And then they're yelling at each other, and you're like, we can't even do classrooms.
I remember when we were mobile in a gym, and it was just, I could not wait to be in a room with walls that were, you know, less than 9 feet high. Cause it was just horribly echoey. And we were like that for almost 2 years for our renovation.
Oh boy. You know, I was just kind of breaking through and trying to be like, what was my thoughts on this? Because I now have my book. And I really liked this chapter because I don't know, like, although I have like that space issue, sometimes I find that I'm the limitation. That I get like so caught up on, you know, like maybe it's that one volunteer or that one thing that I don't know. I've got it in my head that we must be able to do that. And it's usually some crazy wild thing that when you think about it afterwards, you're like, really? Wasn't a big deal. But I find that I put limitations on what can be done. And I don't know, there are some are unhealthy habits that I've developed. Sometimes they're a mindset that I somehow have come across. Maybe it's something someone said or didn't say that I thought they should have said, or you know, like I said, that one person in your ministry who's kind of driving you up the wall. And then I think about, you know, like if that went away, what is my ministry possible? Well, I don't know if quitting because I feel like I'm the limitation is necessarily what God is calling of me right now. But I think our mindsets can also play such a role in, and not just like how she's talking about, like we kind of see things one way, but just in like everything, like I don't know. I don't know where all of you are at. It for me has been a very interesting experience in kids ministry. But yeah, like sometimes I get it even in my head that I'm like, I am the reason that this ministry is not doing XYZ, whatever XYZ is, even though it's not required, even though it's not necessarily there. And I think, you know, that healthy mindset, I think she talks about it maybe in clarifying the wind, maybe it was before. Kind of that like embrace it, let God kind of do his thing. There was at one point I had on my wall, I don't remember where I read it, but it was like the reminder that it's God's ministry. And it was like, hey, God, your ministry has a problem. In case you're wondering, I'm available to help. But, and that, you know, just shifting that has been a bit of a better thing than coming up with. Yeah.
No, I feel you. I highlighted it on page 80. She put unrealistic expectations paired with a fear of failure make for a disastrous combination. And then the next paragraph, she says, as you lead, you'll discover that some of the limitations you face are not external, they're internal. Sometimes limitations have more to do with your weaknesses. And what's really important, at least for me, weaknesses is not a negative thing. It's just not the spiritual gifts God gave me. And that's what I need to remind myself. And then she says things you're simply not good at. And again, that's okay. Again, I can say that verbally, but I got to make myself believe that. But one of the challenges I face with this then, and I don't know about you guys, and you know, she goes on to say, you know, you find people that have those spiritual gifts. Well, how do I find those people with those spiritual gifts? Because most of my Sunday, most of my midweek service, I'm in kids ministry. I don't get to socialize necessarily with all these different adults who then have all these amazing abilities. Like maybe I need to grab one of my engineer parents and be like, hey, space is my issue. Can you look at my rooms and tell me the best way I can make, you know, light of it? Or, you know, an organizing lady. I don't know. But like my challenge then is, okay, here's the idea I want to do, but how do I find those people to do it? You know?
Well, and I think like, so, you know, cards on table, real talk, I guess, what you ever want to call it. Like for me, I think one of the biggest things is I am what I call naturally organized chaos. So my office, I mean, yes, the boxes are all hidden, but it generally has stuff all over because my brain is just like explodes and then everything happens and then I kind of go and I see all you nodding. I feel better. I mean, I have days when I get, and it was weird. I went through a period where, you know, it's not like I can hire someone to come in and clean up my mess after me because that's just laziness. But at the same time, it was becoming an issue. where people were like, they walk by the office, they make the comment, so then you start feeling like insecure. And I mean, I was upfront. I told them when I was hired, like, I'm disorganized chaos. I know where things are, but it's chaos. And I went through a really dark period where I was like, you know what? I am the reason my ministry can't function because people think I'm too messy to do things and all these things. And then I get, and then I log onto Facebook and go into the Kidsman group and someone's like, this is my office. What's your office like? And I'm like, there are people like me.
Yeah, look
But
at this. Can you see this? Like,
oh,
I don't know if you can, but the whole that is my office right now. And I have the kindergarten kids walk by and they say, one little boy said one day when he goes, your office is a mess. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
And I mean, like, so I think that sometimes, and that weakness and finding someone to do it is, I don't even think that, and I mean, I wrestle, this is kind of that weakness. It's something my mom used to harbor on me on, but I can't hire someone to do it for me or find that volunteer. And there's
Right.
someone who comes by and he will clean my office, but if you touch my desk, it stresses me out because I know where everything is on it. But yeah, I think sometimes it's just learning to be like, this is it. And my ministry can function even in my weakness. Like, yes, it might be disorganized chaos. I like to think of it, and I have friends who are like, I go to their houses and I don't notice the dishes. I don't notice the table. I mean, like you might see it, but it's not a deal breaker. And I think that sometimes in those moments, what the world, and I was just reading Isaiah, maybe Jeremiah, Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah, where he's like, Samuel, whoa, wrong. God looks at the inward heart, not the outward appearances. And I think sometimes, especially with that kind of chaos some of us have, we get so caught up in being like, that's how people see me. And then therefore it discredits me and all these things.
Mhm.
But for some, they need to know that in their mess, we can be there. When their house is disastrous, I can walk in and I have no problem moving over your laundry to sit down and have a conversation because that's what you need. It's not, my brain isn't going, oh my goodness. And, you don't have to worry about me thinking you live like a mess because I do too. So we're all good. But I think, in that way, we have to embrace some of those things, that we can't just hand them over to people. And some of the bigger things like space and stuff, we do need to invest. But I think some of those inward limitations, whether or not you like to public speak, whether or not you can confront that volunteer who is running your ministry when they shouldn't be. I think some of those things we have to look at how God is planning on using us, because he's put us in our spaces to be who we are, and whether that's to be, I guess, a sore in someone else's spot, but I don't know.
Yeah, if I were at church right now, I'd show you my office. My pastor is total type A, and every time he walks by my office, so are you gonna clean any of that up or put that away? I'm like, nope, because I need this box and I need what's in this one, and then I need my shelf. And like I feel like kids ministry is a little chaotic. Like it just is. I mean, you're working with kids, you have to be flexible because you don't know how many kids are going to show up, how many volunteers are going to show up, and then you have to be ready to do whatever you need to do. So my pastor understands somewhat now, although times when he comes up to have a meeting and he has to move stuff off the chair in order to sit down, he's kind of like, where do I put this? And I'm like, oh, just the next chair, and he's like, oh, but yeah. So you are in good company for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and if we could just get rid of the holidays in the summer, like we'd be fine. We'd never have to pre-plan for anything. We could just have our books.
Or Mother's Day. I've got 80 tiles in my office right now, and Sharpies and paint and brushes and blah.
Yeah, Kristen, you started talking and my daughter's sitting next to me and she's like, you are also organized chaos. And I was just like, yeah, well, I passed it on to her. We're just a whole family of organized chaos, sometimes unorganized chaos. But one thing that I started doing, like, especially when it comes to volunteers, like recently I had to replace our nursery director. And I've made the decision, like, I'm only going to pray about it. I'm only asking one person. So God, you're going to have to like really make things connect the way that they're meant to connect, because I'm always in the back with the kids. So, same thing. And so I started praying and was just like, God, you're going to have to figure this out. Like, you're going to have to line it up. You're going to have to do all the heavy lifting. This is your ministry, not mine. and I want you just to give me the one person to ask. And I, and I had the name, and it was just like, okay. And I'm, just kind of waiting it out. And so I finally had the opportunity to ask her a couple weeks ago, and she said like it was like a resounding yes. And it was like, how often do I get like a resounding yes? And it was just like, but at the same time, it was like really the first time where I was just willing to really truly surrender all of those things to God and just say, God, this is the need. And you know the need better than I know the need. And everybody's giftings better than what I do. And I need you just to do all of the things that only you can do. So that way I can just step in and give that opportunity to serve. And I mean, and then we were also praying about camp, because we have 2 different camps that we do every year, and trying to figure out funding and getting kids there and all of that. And I had a lady step up and was just like, I want to do the fundraising for it. And it was just like, cool. So that's, just one more thing off my list. But I'm finding more and more that as I become more like the widow in the story, and I just, okay, God, this is the need. And I'm just trusting that as I pour out in prayer, you're gonna meet those needs. And he's been faithful so far every single time. So it's been cool to see. What's this?
So do you guys know of anyone who could help with your problem? Like, I know it's kind of, we don't know each other's church bodies and whatnot, but with the problems we've talked about today, is there anyone that could come to mind that might be able to provide a solution or a help to the problem?
This is going to sound really church lady, but Jesus, like he's the only one that can expand the walls and make room for for all the kids. He's the only one that's really truly fully capable of orchestrating all of the things that need to happen, whether it's space or whether it's volunteers or no matter what it is. He's,
I think also bringing in a fresh set of eyes to look at how you are laying things out. Like I know that sometimes I get caught up and I'm like, this is how we've done it. And it's not necessarily the wrong way, but like we have some space issues. Our kids sometimes they're like super consistent. And then suddenly when I'm like, okay, we're consistent enough, we're going to move on to the next thing, they all vanish. And it's like that word that spooks them all. But sometimes having another volunteer to look over how you're divvying things up, or is there a way that we could time it that small groups aren't necessarily happening simultaneously, rotations, like just someone to look at your spaces differently, whether that's, I mean, like maybe an interior designer to come in and say like, hey, we could do this with the interior, and then you could fit twice as many kids in, and you could have your comfortable spaces, or you could have your stations based, or sitting down with like the facility board and being like, this is our problem. What rooms do we have available and how can we make them multi-purpose? Can sometimes be of help. I know like we know our kids best. So sometimes those solutions don't work, like putting all your kids in the gym and you're like, it's great for one Sunday, but we can't do this without my leaders going nuts. But I think that can be super helpful. And I know in terms of the volunteers, it's hard to get to know people, but finding people to take your space in kids ministry, like there are always fires, there always will be fires. But I have found that by not having to be there, I can at least make it into the service, for that like 10 minutes, but I can kind of greet families as they come in. And then you also get to greet other people. And I would highly recommend getting involved. And I mean, I'm sure, I don't know what you guys do, but involved in other ministries. Like it's really easy to kind of stay stuck in our kids ministry realm, but like attend the ladies retreat, go to that adult thing, because when you sit at the table with a bunch of people, suddenly you learn something new, or ask other people like, this is what I'm looking for. Do you know anybody? We've had some that have come forward, have been like given to me like, hey, you should check it out with this person. And I was like, I have no idea who they are, or the conversation I had did not indicate that. And they ended up being phenomenal at that part. So
That's what I was thinking is, an interior decorator, or I don't know, maybe an engineer guy can just look at my rooms and be like, hey, if we, put this here or that there, or if we built this or that to help manage the space better. I I've even thought about, and I mean, I really dread this, but like switching some of my rooms around, like my large group space. And I would switch it for a larger space, but it would also mean losing a classroom or like having to manipulate the classrooms differently. But again, I have to keep in mind that it's a temporary thing and it's a flexible thing. So it may be difficult at first because everyone's used to doing it this way, but the new way might be more productive in the end. And again, too, like I shared earlier, be in prayer for us for this breakfast we're going to have with this owner of the lawn place on May 26th. It's a Friday to see if he'll sell us his building. I'll give you a short abridged version, Kristen, where we have a building attached to us. It's a warehouse and it's double the size of my current building. And we're going to ask the owner if he could sell it to us, which would mean he'd lose out on all that space. And he's a very big lawn management company type thing. But we're going to be like, hey, but did you know that there's this empty Kmart building a mile and a half up the road that is bigger than all of your space and will be in one location? Like, so we're going to try to showcase it up. I don't know. The Kmart's too big for us to buy. Like, it would just be millions upon millions of dollars. But for him, it might be more manageable. I don't know. But anyways, that's our hopeful next move, is having a breakfast with this guy and just laying it out there. But and maybe God will move and hey, we get a big building, but we'll
Hey,
see.
God is so capable of so many things we didn't know possible. Oh, that's so exciting though. That was just exciting.
Yeah, I dream often of what would happen in my kids' ministry space if I got that warehouse space, but we'll see what happens. So I like this next question because I'm a dreamer and it kind of goes into it. But what options exist that seem crazy to try, but just might work? Ours is the meeting and then me taking over the warehouse and turning it into an all kids space. But you know. What are some other crazy options that could help with your problem?
So there is a vacant grocery store directly across the street from our church. And so we've talked about the possibility of, once it's officially on the market, trying to purchase it and then keeping our church for office space. So, and then the sanctuary would be just kind of like a community center type something.
That would be nice to have two different locations, an office building and then your church building.
And directly across the street from each other.
You can make an underground tunnel.
How cool would that be? Like,
Crazy. I said crazy.
no,
Big.
it's not going to be an underground tunnel. It's going to be an underground railway. So that way you could just load everything by the elevator into the chute to go back into my office, and then it puts itself away.
It's gonna be like those tubes at the bank, you know, where you put your thing in, you know, except it'll be you and your supplies getting shot across underground.
Yes.
And the key thing, they put themselves away. Like, this is big dreaming. When you find those supplies, could you please send them my way? Because I would love, like a done.
We'll add to it. They have like little wings, so that way if it's not yours and you try to grab it, it just flies away. Puts itself back.
Oh, that would be awesome. Oh my goodness. Oh, I don't know who I was talking to just the other day about the Jetsons. And do you guys remember is it Rosie the robot?
Mhm.
And we were talking about how great it would be to have a Rosie. And I'm like, wait a minute, aren't the Jetsons in the 2020s? Like, the show was based in that era. I'm like, so Rosie should be coming soon. And if so, I need her because she needs to come to my kids' ministry and to my house and help me clean up.
I bet if you started shoulder tapping your grade 9s, by the time they're in grade 12, they will have built you that robot. They are of that mindset, or maybe even your grade fives. They could probably do it by grade 8. I mean, they know all of that stuff so well.
So I had to Google this. The Jetsons took place in 2062.
Okay.
That day. But Back to the Future was 2020.
So where's the flying cars? I mean, they're coming.
the flying
We have
cars?
and cars.
We
But-
do have the hoverboards.
I think there is a flying car. Actually, I believe it was, I don't know, I saw it somewhere, and I don't know if it was real news or fake news, but I believe they're talking about the first prototype has been put into action, and it looked kind of weird. And I was like, yeah, that looks horrid, but looks like a really bad idea. But I believe it is actually in the process right now.
I feel like it's from a recent movie. They had a flying car and it was the prototype. I don't know if it was like a Will Smith movie, but some type of sci-fi movie, like within the past year or two, supposedly had one.
So maybe it was just someone took the advertisement for it, and like, you know what they do, they can do all that crazy stuff, and they're like, this is really here. And then me being gullible, I was like, oh great.
No, I believe it is here, but the issue is trying to figure out flying laws, traffic laws for in the air along with airplanes, and all of the different dynamics that would require for all of that. Now I've heard too that we're supposed to be getting like a frequency powered car that operates off of frequencies instead of gas or solar
So I
or
looked
anything
up-
else, using like the ancient math of the Egyptians.
Whoa. A flying car prototype from Aska of Silicon Valley landed in the parking lot at the 2023 Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. So there was a flying car.
We live in a crazy world. Maybe we need to go back to the horse and buggy.
And apparently you can buy one. It's going to be on sale this year. I think it's a different one for $777,000.
There is, I found a link that was like these 6 flying cars you can buy for under $100,000. They're little, they look kind of like those like smart cars with wings, but I just feel like if a smart car hit a flying like eagle, would the person die? It would be like the moose of the sky, would it not?
We're all going to have to become airline pilots.
You're gonna need, yeah, your pilot's license to do it.
Yeah,
In
and I
my
think
mind,
that's part of the issue is that they can't figure out how to regulate it.
Yeah, we'd all have to become airline pilots. I love where our conversations go. Just side note, kids ministry brains, like it's just the way we're wired.
well, we need to know, what if one of the kids brings it up on Sunday? Now we have actual information to share.
Oh, and if you ever happen to sing drops in the ocean to your kids ministry and you want to know how many drops of water there are in the ocean, it's over sextillion droplets. We looked it up on Sunday after we sang it. So
That is awesome.
if you were to write it out, it's like, I think like 30 zeros or something like that. It's an insane amount. But all right. So we talked about the potential people. We'll wrap up with this last question. The potential people we could talk to, with our problems are, so imagine a conversation with them. What do you think would draw them in? Like, how does it relate to the need you have? How can they relate to that to help us with our problems? It's kind of a harder question.
I feel like this is one of those questions though that like goes back to you encompassing the vision of kids ministry. Like, the people we talk to have to believe in what we do, and the way that they believe in what we do is that we've bought them into the vision. And I think sometimes we forget. Like, I remember one year for a soccer camp we did, I actually got up and I was like, this isn't just my soccer camp. Like, if I do it, I actually can't do it because there's not enough of me to go around to everybody that, and I went on this big thing about how everybody has to like buy in and participate. And I think sometimes in kids ministry, we get kind of labeled as like childcare, and that's what we do. And that's how we're seen, and we're important and we're valued, but kind of in a funky different way than maybe some of the other ministries in our church that are run that adults participated. And often I think the people that we need to solve some of our problems aren't necessarily connected at all to kids ministry. They might have like a grandchild or, someone who goes into it, but they're not necessarily as invested themselves. And I think that a big part of that is having that church buy-in, because we need, like, I know I'm dealing with an issue right now, and I went to my lead and I said, like, this is where we're at. Like, our situation isn't the same as all the others, and I'm struggling. And so he went to bat for me because he knew where I was coming for. And it was so important that we have all of those backings to do those things. Because I mean, you can go to your organizer, but if your lead suddenly is like, actually, these rooms need to be multi-purpose and all you can have in here is a table and chairs, everything you've just done is out the wall.
For the person I'm thinking about, they are a parent, and I know that, like, they don't volunteer with me at all, just because it's just not their thing. But I think they would believe and understand in what their kids are doing and seeing the growth in their kids to want to make it better for us. You know what I mean? Like, they see where their kids were and where they're at, and they see the value of kids ministry. So I think that would be my approach. Not guilting, like, hey, your kid's not gonna learn about Jesus if you don't do this for me. But hey, how much more could we teach your kid if we had our space better utilized? If it wasn't, if it could be used better, imagine how much more we could do. And I mean, no, this should go without saying, and I'm not saying, like, the content of Jesus should be all that we need, 100%, but environment, experience, space is important.
Well, and I mean, you can't, if you don't feel safe in your space, you can't learn about Jesus. So
I love how I feel like over the past few years, I don't know if it's been since COVID or what, but I feel like that's becoming more of the resounding thing is, yes, we need to have, amazing Bible lessons about Jesus. But how kids feel where they're at is also important. Like, they have to balance each other. Especially after our last book talking about all these different kids coming from all these different scenarios, they're not going to listen to a word we say until they're comfortable in that space. So if we have 30 kids in a 12 by 12 room, that's going to be overwhelming and scary. So I just really appreciate how that's coming out more and more. Well, if nobody else has any thoughts or ideas, I know we only got over chapter 5 questions, but I think it was good. It was a good chapter to go over. And chapter 6 was good as well, talking about, I mean, that probably could have been a whole nother thing of questions on its own, but clarifying the win for your ministry. It's good to have, especially for everything we just talked about. If we're going to ask somebody to do something for us, we need to, make sure they see the vision and the need for it. So, yeah. All right. Well, would anybody like to close us in prayer today? Jackie, would any of your kids like to close in prayer for us today?
Well, I've got my mom. She just showed up. So I actually should probably jump off.
No problem. I can just
Oh.
close the prayer and we'll catch up next.
Okay. All right. See you guys.
All right. Well, then I'll just pray. God, I thank you so much for the ladies here in this group. I thank you for everybody in the group. And I lift them up to you as they dive into this weekend. Lord, I'm thankful for
Just those. Okay.
book and the things we've been able to discuss today about problems and how we can somewhat solve them or begin a strategy to solve them. And I pray that we can take action over the next few weeks on maybe reaching out to these people who have these amazing talents and abilities that you've given them, and communicate our vision and missions, that they see the need for change in our ministries. They see how they can help our ministries. Lord, I pray that you begin to work on their hearts even right now as we are praying on this. Lord, maybe just put something in their mind like, hey, I noticed the kids ministry is doing this or that, and it could be done better. Lord, so I pray that you prepare them and make our conversations fruitful, and Lord, just be with us as we prepare for Sunday. In your name we pray. Amen. Awesome. I
Wow.
remember to record, so yay. We're gonna stop now.